down to 3 seconds, 2-1, and the Napoleon Wildcats, the team of destiny, have taken care of that unfinished business, getting to the Final Four here at Dayton. Back-to-back wins. They're your Division II state champs.
Business finished. Napoleon does it. 76-44.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all creatures in between, welcome to the latest edition of Tournament Talk. I am your host, Brian Skowronski. In just a few seconds, all the OH reporters are about to join me, but what an exciting week we just experienced right here on the OH Report. We saw a state champion crowned, crazy individual performances, some big-time team accomplishments at the regional level for the boys, and a whole bunch of stuff in between. So let's break it all down for you folks right here and now, and welcome in those OH reporters. Here we got Travis Berardi, Garret Parlett, and Storm Bluntschly in the mix. And Travis, we'll start with you. You had the call at the end of that Napoleon State Championship game. Business finished. They win the first ever chip in the history of that program, beating Carroll in the state Final Four, and then they really handed it to Vinton County in the championship game. What would you say impressed you most about the Cats' title run?
Nothing was going to stop them from that state championship, Brian. We talked about it in the state semifinal and state final broadcast. They controlled their destiny the whole way. They were the only team that could stop them. And in the 4 games that we covered them, the 2 regionals and the 2 state games, I believe all 5 starters were players of the game at one point, and they all showed out in that state championship game as well. Sophie Chips, 7 points. She hits a 3. Taylor Strock, kind of quiet in those first 3 games, but she showed out when it meant the most, scoring 23 points, getting 7 rebounds. Emma Pedroza, who had 2 big games in the regional final and the state semifinal, she finishes with 6 but gets 6 big rebounds. Kelly Hellberg, again, back-to-back players of the game in the state level, had a really good game in that final, 16 points. And then Kaylee Wrestler, a girl who we said she wasn't committed to any college. Don't know why colleges weren't looking at her. She finishes with 18 points and 8 rebounds after putting up, I believe, 13 points in the state semifinal. So just a balanced team altogether. They also had a couple of players come off the bench and contribute as well. And, not being able to play in the state semifinal last year, 4 hours from playing in their first ever state semifinal, got it taken away. That unfinished business mantra, they just rolled through the season. Their only loss was to a state semifinalist in Division I, who ended up losing to the number 3 ranked team in the nation, who ended up winning in double overtime in their state final. So, and they also beat Berlin Highland, who knocked off Ottawa Glandorf for a state division title in Division III. So this team just rolled through the regular season and then did what they needed to do in a regional semifinal against Bellevue. They came back and defeated Norton. They took care of Carroll, which that would have been a really cool state final just because Carroll was on the floor last year when they got pulled off and canceled due to COVID. That would have been just a cool storyline, but, that came down to a final shot. They get into the state final, and then they just completely roll Vinton County, who was the number 4 team in the state.
And a really special moment, too, when the seniors from last year's team that went 27-0 got advanced to that state Final Four, but never really got to play, of course. They were allowed the opportunity to cut down the net with the team. And I think that's what put sports like in their own little different category, just the unique impact that they can have. And the Wildcat Army, an exceptional fan base. It was just really cool to be a part of that experience. And G-Man and Storm, you both got to see something very similar with East Knox football last year. When a high school team is just fully supported by the community, it's just such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, you can see their fans are just, throwing in our inboxes and just telling us thank you. And it's just, it means a lot. And it's congratulations out to Napoleon for going down there and winning that one. They got a big camaraderie down there. And it's really just, you shut the lights out when you go to the games and the whole town's behind you. So shout out to Napoleon on winning their state title.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
it's a
they actually. They shut down the entire town too when they returned. Go ahead, Storm.
I was just going to say, yeah, congratulations to them. I mean, if it's anything like the Bulldogs up at East Knox, I mean, it's got to be a great thing. I mean, all those girls' names will become household names, and they'll go down in history, and they'll be known forever. They'll be legends forever in Napoleon.
All right, that's it for the ladies. Let's move on to the boys regionals, and we'll start with the Division 4 Akron region, where Richmond Heights kind of breezed through into the Final Four. They made light work of Bristol and then Warren JFK in the finals. And just like football, though, JFK knocked the Lucas Cubs out of the tournament 54-48, but it was a wild Cubs comeback. You got to give them a lot of credit. G-Man, we'll start with you. How do you view Lucas's season, winning their second straight district title, even though they didn't get as far as they really wanted to?
I mean, shout out to them, man. They lost Riley Gossam at the beginning of the season. Obviously, one of their better scorers, if not the best scorer on that team. Ethan Sauter really carried the load as well as the defense did, and they got down the Firestone High School against Warren JFK, and I thought they were going to make that comeback, man. They were down 16 at one point, got it all the way to 2 before Warren JFK, TJ Harden made those 2 free throws that really iced it away. But shout out to Lucas, man. Don't keep your head down. You know, it was a good year, and shout out to them.
Storm, do you think if there would have been 5 quarters in that regional semifinal game that the Cubs would have actually come back from 16 down and won it?
Oh, definitely, without a doubt. I mean, Lucas, you see the heart they play with. A lot of teams would get tired. A lot of teams are tired at the end of the fourth, but I mean, Lucas 5, 6, 7, 8 quarters. I mean, you could play 3 total games and they would still want to go at it. And you know, it's just heartbreaking to know that they got knocked off in that fashion after mounting such a great comeback. But you know, Gossam got his moment there. I believe he made 2 threes down the stretch that really put some pressure on Warren JFK. But yeah, I believe if they had some more time, they really would have got it done, because they did have a lot of momentum in the fourth. But you know, that's no knock against Warren JFK. When they needed to make a play, they did. They stepped up and they made a play. So, but you know, if there were 5 quarters, I'm taking Lucas.
The Cubs are going to graduate 3 really good players if you include Riley Gossam into that mix, who it did definitely look like he's starting to get healthier. If they would have had like 1 or 2 weeks left in the season, I really think that he could have been a key difference maker for them. But, you know, a lot of great young talent coming back. Travis, do you see this Lucas Cubs team returning back to the regionals for a 3rd straight year?
I think it's going to be tough with their top 3 scorers going away this year due to graduation, but they have so many good freshmen and sophomores on that team that I don't know about next year. But, you know, this Cubs surprised us this year after learning Gossam was going to go down, win a district title. And, you know, what a story for Riley Gossam as well. Hits a 3 at the end of the 3rd quarter. They start the 4th quarter, he hits a 3. And then when they were down 2, he was literally inches short of taking the lead. And what a story that would have been. If they would have taken the lead, that would have changed the whole complexion of the last 2 minutes. And you said you thought maybe they needed an extra quarter. I think they only needed an extra 2 minutes in that 4th quarter. They still had it down to 2. Those free throws made it 4, and then they kind of had to, you know, force a couple shots up. If you had 2 more minutes left in that 4th quarter, they wouldn't have had to do that early enough, and they would have been able to possibly, you know, get a couple buckets and pull away with that one. But back to what you asked about, you know, next year, hey, they proved me wrong. This year I thought they would be a district contender. I didn't think, because of St. Paul and South Central, how good they were this year, that they would make it out of their districts. But, you know, next year, I don't know, but 2 years from now, they're going to be back to exactly where they were last year and this year.
Really impressive run by the Cubs, and you know, you got to take your hat off to them. They were the number 5 seed in that district, and they had to knock off the top 2 seeds, maybe even the top 3 if I remember right, to get to that championship game. So kudos to the Cubs on a season well played. Let's jump to Division 3 now, where we saw a great game between Western Reserve and Johnstown Monroe in the Elida Regional semifinals. Tough night though for the Rough Riders, and in particular Luke Rollinson, who fouled out of the game with just 5 points. G-Man, in your opinion, did the better team win this matchup, because that was, you know, the district player of the year that basically got into foul trouble right away? He was only on the floor for a few handful of minutes.
Yeah, it really happened so fast. I really didn't even see him get all those fouls called up on him, but it was just like it was so quick, and he did end up fouling out of the game. But I think if he was in there, man, the full game, I really don't see Western Reserve falling. John Scrota tried to carry him on his back, but it just wasn't enough. They needed Luke Rollinson to be out there to help them. And just Gavin Foe was too much, man. They just really dominated from the get-go, and he had 33 points, went 14 of 17, and that's going to be hard to beat when a player has that many field goals, and especially in the paint.
Yeah, we'll get to the Johnnies again here in a second. And Gavin Foe, dude, that was one of the most impressive performances that I've seen, period, from a high school player in a game. But Travis, final thoughts on Western Reserve and their historic season. First regional appearance for them since 1963, and that's just the second in program history. I think they've been playing hoops down there since like the 1940s.
Yeah, you got to hand it to Coach Sheldon. The other Coach Sheldon, now, both of those guys, Coach David Sheldon, pretty much a Hall of Famer in the books, but, Coach Chris Sheldon, he's building that resume to be one of those as well. He's a great coach. He had a great group of kids that have been playing since grade school. I kind of, question a couple of those calls, a couple of those fouls on Rawlinson early on. It seemed a little light, especially for a regional semifinal game, but that changed the complexion. John Scrata completely showed out in that first half and then, came back down to earth a little bit in that second half, and that was the difference. But, Rawlinson kind of got, a little couple tough calls. If that even one call changes, he's in there a little bit more, might be able to get a feel for things and get his shot going. But just a tough game for Western Reserve, but they should be proud. First time in 58 years that they've made it to the regional level, and they competed with a tough Johnstown team that it took Gavin Foe every single point to get past the Rough Riders.
Great season for Western Reserve. I mean, that's about the only way you could slice it up, but we're all about winners here on the OH Report. And Storm, you got to call that Johnny's regional final. They got beat, though, by Glandorf 64-56. What was your takeaway from both teams and how they each performed at the regional level?
Oh, yeah, one quick thing about Western Reserve. Hey, I know I was giving you guys a lot of flack, but you guys had a great season, and there's nothing to hang your head about. Luke, you don't hang your head on this one, man. It's going to be everyone has those games, and Western Reserve did something great for their program down there. But, getting back to Ottawa Glandorf, I mean, they just look stellar. Their press defense just suffocated Johnstown Monroe, and remember in the first quarter that Johnstown Monroe, I think, had 9 turnovers or something like that, and that's a team that hasn't really taken care of the ball well this year, but, I mean, it really showed when Ottawa Glandorf stepped up and made them uncomfortable. And in the post, I believe it was Owen Nichols really made him pay down low. Couldn't leave him one-on-one all night, and that opened up shooters on the floor. So the Titans look really good, but the thing that got to me the most was the mental mistakes from both teams. A lot of missed free throws down late in the stretch, and Johnstown Monroe, some costly turnovers that I believe could have given them the game. They were in it all the way until the final buzzer, but, I mean, some costly turnovers really killed them. So both teams played very well, but I believe the Titans really deserve this one.
It's a good team, perennial program that seems to get to that regional just about every year. Last year, I know they were right on the doorstep like a lot of teams were and didn't get the opportunity to play in their regional championship game. So I do think it is really fitting and cool that we're seeing a lot of repeats this year, teams being motivated and, taking their game to the next level because unfinished business was still on the table. So I'm kind of actually cheering for Ottawa as they move on to take care of some of those unfinished memories. Finally, let's move on. Let's discuss the D2 Elida Regional, which saw Lima Shawnee move on to the state. And the Indians, I think you could say that they got their toughest test of the tournament in the semifinals against Shelby. G-Man, what do you remember about that Classic versus the Whippets? Because there was a lot to unpack. I mean, there was a great individual duel. There were some bad mistakes at the end of the game. There were some big key runs. What was your big takeaway?
I mean, it was really George Mangus versus TJ Pugh. Those two went at it all night long. TJ Pugh for Shelby had 32, and then George Mangus really was just in the fast break living. He was lighting it up. They were getting nice outlet passes down to him, and he was just taking it to the cup for easy layups. And he was getting fouled on a lot of them, heading to the free throw line. He had 39 in that game against Shelby, but then they went on to knock off Akron Buckdale, and they really just blew their doors off, beat them 88-74. So I do agree with you that Shelby really was their biggest test in that regional semifinal. So it's going to be curious to see if they can move on and maybe knock off Akron St. Vincent St. Mary, one of the perennial powerhouses in this area, not only in Ohio, but they go in every year and usually can compete for a national championship. So it's going to be tough for George Mangus and those boys down there for Lima, but maybe they can get it done. You never know.
Well, Storm, you told me last week that TJ hadn't impressed you all that much during the season. Did he change your mind a little bit with that 32-point outburst?
Definitely changed my mind. I mean, he is a man amongst boys as well as his counterpart, George Mangus. They both really showed out. It was an incredible clash. But I mean, when you have a dude that can go out and score 39 points on any given night and greater, I mean, it's going to be hard to beat that. And I think Shelby's a really good team. But I mean, George Mangus and those boys just really got at him.
And I thought it was really neat that the Shawnee coach, I did a post-game interview with him, and he grabbed me right after we got off the air, and he was like, that's the best team that we've played all season, and it's a shame that this isn't a Final Four type of game because I think Shelby is that good this season. It's just too bad they had to meet us this early because he knows what type of team they had, and that's another one of those teams. They were the number one team in the state, undefeated last year, didn't get a play at regional. So I think there's something to be said for the motivation of a lot of these teams and athletes this year trying to get back and not letting COVID stand in their way. So Travis, once again, we'll give you the final word on a historic season for a local team here. What do you think you're going to remember most about this Shelby team and what they accomplished? First district championship for them in over 20 years.
Exactly. They took care of business. They won the MOAC. Yeah, they dropped a tough one to River Valley, the last MOAC game of the year, but they had already the conference locked up. And I think that loss actually helped them because, some teams going in on a big win streak just think they're on that high to where they don't, they can just run over anybody and they have that mentality and then they get upset. But River Valley, that loss, I think was the best thing to happen to them because it woke them back up. It got them focused. And they ran through, and went through that district. They knocked off they didn't just knock off. They rolled a tough Norwalk team that, looked like they were going to compete with Shelby after knocking off Ontario in overtime. And then Shelby going in and you said Gavin Foe had one of the best individual performances, but Mangus had one of the best individual performances that I've seen, and he needed every point to knock off TJ Pugh and company because TJ Pugh, after the start, I don't know if somebody from Shawnee jabbed at him or said something to him because after the first couple of minutes, he just took off. And I remember looking at you during that game. You said, Pugh's going to go for 40. And he almost did. And he almost carried Shelby to that regional final. And just what a season. This was kind of expected from us coming into this year that Shelby was going to be this good. And they just, I think they went beyond that. And, if it wasn't for just a great performance by Shawnee and if, they were on another side of the bracket, who knows? We probably could see Shelby and Shawnee in a state championship game because, you never know. That might be the state championship game.
So obviously, some amazing performances in that D2 regional that we covered. But when you reminisce about the tournament as a whole for both the boys and the girls, I'll open it up to everybody. Tell me about some players, some teams, some fans that stands out. What are going to be some of your top memories when you're sitting around here in a couple of weeks? Like, man, I want to go back and watch that live stream or that highlight. Travis, we'll start with you.
The fans.
That's right, Wildcat Army, baby.
Wildcat Nation. I love that. And I rewatched. They did the little lasso thing, and then every little chop, Napoleon, Napoleon, and then they go crazy, But that was cool. But the best part of that was after the game, they were done cutting down the nets. They go over to the fan side, and they all do it at once. And I even said on here, that's one of the coolest things. You see that all the time with college football teams and their fan bases. You don't see it that much with high school. And more teams should do stuff like that because it's just an awesome thing to see. Impressive players, I'd have to go with Foe, Mangus, TJ Pugh on the boys' side. And then I just got to go with all 5 starters from Napoleon because, like I said earlier, all 5 of them were players of the game at least once in the final 4 games that they played on our air. Just a great all-around performance by 5 players that, just showed out. And teams, I'd have to go with Lima Shawnee. We watched Akron Buchtel. We've seen highlights going through the legs, one-handed slams from their team. You and I were talking on the way back from Lucas's game. I believe their starting 5 averaged 20 points, 10 points, 15 points, 12 points. And we said, wow, that semifinal might be the furthest that any of these 2 teams go. But Shawnee just, played their game and just took it to Buchtel early. And then held on for the win. So, yeah, the impressive team for me would be Lima Shawnee.
I think my impressions are basically all the same. But I think, though, for me, TJ Pugh showed that he's the top recruit in the state. I know that he has some D2 offers. I'd love for him to go ahead and sign on the dotted line right here locally at Ashland, and I know that they want him too. But I'm actually kind of surprised that he doesn't have more D1 looks. We're talking about a 6'5", 6'6" point guard that when the lights are the brightest, he steps up his game. That's what I like the most about TJ. In the big games this year, don't tell me about some of the MOAC games where they're playing some outmatched opponents. When they've played the likes of Lima Senior and Shawnee, that's when TJ really steps up his game. So he was really impressive to me. And then Napoleon is just such a cool story. We barely know this team. We've got to know them a little bit over the last couple of weeks, but 5 seniors graduated from that team last year that went 27-0. And so they had 5 basically new starters, I think, with the exception of Strock. So maybe 4 new starters this year. And they were so motivated by that unfinished business that they were able to cut down the nets and do it in record fashion there in the championship game. And the Wildcat Army has got to be one of the best fan bases in the entire state of Ohio. I don't care who you cheer for, you got to get on their level because I think they're on that upper rung. What about you, G-Man?
And one thing about TJ Pugh real quick, Brian. TJ Pugh as well. You'd think some players after the season ends, they take a break. He was back in the gym today. I went to the gym earlier, and he's there working out for a good 2 hours because, like you said, he doesn't get a lot of those college scouts coming towards him. He only has 4 or 5 offers right now, but whoever he goes to, they're going to get a player because not only is this kid good on the court, but off the court, he prepares, he puts in the work, and he's going to be, I believe he's going to be one of the best players in the next level as well.
And I believed most of your story until you said he was there for 2 hours. I know you wasn't putting in 2 hours at the gym, Travis, but I'll believe that you saw him there.
He was there before I got there, and he was there after I left, and I was there for an hour, okay?
All right, G-Man, take it away.
It's hard to pick the players, man, that impressed. There's a lot of good players in this area, but that George Mangus kid down at Lima Shawnee and TJ Pugh, really, man. I was with Storm. TJ Pugh, he really didn't wow me all season, and then I got down on that floor running that camera, and those 2 guys were smack talking each other. They were going at it. It was really just point for point. Whoever really scored more was going to be the winner, and that's why Lima Shawnee ended up winning as Mangus was the leader with 39. But it'd be great to see if we could have those 2 just go one-on-one, Mangus versus Pugh, and kind of see who wins that one.
Yeah.
But for teams, it was really a shocker that Willard knocked off Colonel Crawford the way that they did. I'd say that would be the game that really surprised me. I mean, they really dominated them from the get-go. Trey Paxton was just knocking down threes from wherever he wanted and really just completely blew the doors off of the Eagles. So, and for the ladies, man, shout out to Willard, too. They got down to Afrocentric and ended up losing that one. But I believe if they would have got that ball to McKenna Stevens, they would have had an opportunity to win that one. I know you believe that one too, Brian.
No doubt about it, man. You got to get the ball in the hand of your senior stars when the game's on the line. So that was shocking to me that they tried to feed a sophomore at the end of the game. And I'm sure McKenna, she might not have slept since that night thinking about the fact, just give me the darn ball. All right, Storm, last word on this topic. Go ahead.
Definitely my players, George Mangus, TJ Pugh. You guys have pretty much said it all, but man, these players, like Garrett said, and like you said, I had said all year that TJ didn't wow me, but man, when the lights shine the brightest, TJ really stepped up, and George Mangus also stepped up. And hey, I'm right there with you guys. I'm buying a ticket to that one-on-one competition. My game of the year probably was Western Reserve versus Willard. That one was an instant classic. Came down to the wire with Western taking it home. Just an incredible performance. And what shocked me the most on the girls' side was Buckeye Central getting knocked off as early as they did, but moving forward, I'm happy that Napoleon got the finish they deserved. I really think they deserved it, and it's like a perfect bow on it, a Cinderella story. So congrats to Napoleon once again, and I'm happy they finally got their finish.
Right, and they got an after party too, unlike any that I have ever seen. Even in the COVID era, they shut down the entire streets. They had a DJ spinning upon their arrival back in town. I think they was doing it until about 1 a.m. They had pep rallies at school the last couple of days. So that is a fan base and a community that knows how to give it up for a team that just accomplished what they did. As for the fellas, though, moving on to the Final Four this weekend, of the teams that we just saw, who do you guys think has the best chance at taking in that whole enchilada just like the Lady Cats did? Well, I guess I'll assign somebody this question. Storm, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I was hopping back on the George Mangus hype train. Lima Shawnee's probably got the best bet of anyone in the race right now. I mean, when you go out, like I said before, and score 40, your team's got a pretty good shot at winning any game, let alone a big title game. And George Mangus, he's a clutch performer, man. When it gets late in the game, he's a guy you can trust, and that's a really admirable trait. So I think George Mangus and those boys at Lima Shawnee are going to get it done.
Go ahead, G.
I'll pass it to you, Garrett.
All right, my turn. I mean, I don't want to be a bandwagon fan, but I guess I'm gonna have to pick Lima Shawnee too. After the night I seen against them and Shelby, obviously it's going to be such a hard team to stop when they get in transition the way they do. I mean, as soon as it was rebounded, it was up to George Mangus, and he was running the floor for easy fast break layups, and he was getting fouled and taking it to the free throw line for and ones. But man, it's going to be a tough task to go up and beat Drew Joyce's Irish up there against Akron St. Vincent St. Mary down there. So I guess we'll see. Good luck to both teams, but Lima Shawnee's got their hands full.
I'm going to go actually with Richmond Heights. They're a team that last year were supposed to play in a regional final against Lucas, didn't get it. Kind of that unfinished business once again. They roll through the region, didn't even have any problems with those two teams. They're coming in, on a high going into the state Final Four. They'll play Botkins 25-3, and then we'll play the winner of Columbus Grove and Glenwood for the state championship. But then, if I may, Division II, I think Shawnee, Mangus, after what they did against Buckdale, they made me a real believer because, like I said, I thought Buckdale was going to just steamroll that regional final and go to the state Final Four. And then in Division III, a team that I've seen a couple times, Worthington Christian. They beat Lucas by 20. They beat Centerburg by, I believe, like 34 points. And then in the sectional final, they beat Northmore by 34 points. This team with DJ Moore, one of the best down in the Columbus area. So I think they're going to have a good shot at winning a state championship. They're the top team in Division III.
Yeah, I'll second that with Worthington Christian. I watched a little bit of that game where they were able to beat down, at the time, an undefeated Centerburg team. They're incredibly impressive. Yeah, they beat them by like 50, if memory serves.
Yeah.
But how could you not go with Lima Shawnee after what we just seen? And what I like most about them is that they have the full collection of everything. They have good ball handlers, they have size, they have kids that can shoot the three, but what's most important to me is they got that star power, baby. Look at what Mangus has done. He's averaging 40 points per game over the last 2 weeks. That's absurd when you're playing at the district and the regional level. So even though he's going up against now a perennial power, thanks to LeBron and what he was able to bring to St. V's, and Coach Drew still doing his thing since back then in the early 2000s, it's going to be a heck of a matchup. Hopefully OH.Report can get in the building and bring some live and free coverage of that one, because that's going to be one hell of a showdown, and I can't wait to see who comes out on top. But gentlemen, we're always on top here at the OH.Report, bringing the people what they so desire, the best live and free coverage, period, around the entire state. So I want to thank you guys all for making amazing contributions to our live streams throughout the entire season. And it's been one for the history books, basically all the way around for our company this year. So appreciate you guys for putting in the hard work, and we appreciate you, the fans, for watching each and every week. But for this edition of Tournament Talk, we are out. We will see you at the Boys State Championship this weekend down in Dayton. Deuces.